Welcome, good people of the internet. This is the Present Barber Podcast. I'm your host, Nelson Carmona, and on this podcast, we share stories from the hair industry and the unique people in it. On today's episode, we have our very first international barber, Barber Josh O.P. If you don't know Josh, he's a multi-award-winning barber and an international educator where he goes around the world and teaches his very own curriculum. We get into a discussion about where he started in his journey in the barber industry, but also we have some pretty deep discussions about just life in general and what it is to be self-aware and understand who you are. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Let's get started. Welcome, good people of the internet. This is the Present Barber Podcast. I'm your host, Nelson Carmona, and on today's podcast, we have a very special guest, Josh O.P. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. It kind of ended up being a perfect melding of situations, you being out here in the States and stuff like that. So I appreciate you taking the time. And
No, it's my absolute honor to be involved in anything like this. And so, like, one thing I've always stressed is people that I've met and become part of their journeys because of the academy and because of the education. It's always a pleasure of mine to be able to give back in some way and meet up and so yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah. So on the podcast here, we kind of like to share people's journeys and stories, and we always like to start the beginning from the beginning. So if we can rewind the tape and go back to where did this whole barbering career start for you, or even just picking up the clippers?
So, to be honest, it was like, if you'd have asked me when I was in school if I would cut hair, I would have told you absolutely no. Like, no chance on earth. But I remember it was New Year's Eve, and I can't remember exactly what year. I think it was 6 years ago, 7 years ago maybe now, I'm not sure. But it was New Year's Eve, and I hadn't booked into the barbershop to get a haircut. I couldn't get in anywhere to get a haircut, and I knew my dad had a home set of clippers. So I just started to cut my own hair. And as crazy as it seems, and I think barbers will definitely be able to understand what I'm talking about, but as soon as I heard the hair coming off the head with the clippers, there was something about it that had me hooked. It had me hooked, and I was like, I need to pursue this. And at the time, I was studying geography at university, but I was totally lost. I had no sense of purpose, no sense of passion and drive for what I was actually doing. I was just coasting, and at the time I didn't really realize it, but I'm happy to admit now I was a complete coaster. And as soon as I heard that sound, basically I knew that my life was about to change.
Now, going back into there, was it a while before you started experimenting with other people's hair or anything, or did you have your friends come over?
No, it was the next day.
Day? Okay.
No, I don't think it was literally the next day,
Yeah.
but it was quite soon afterwards. I remember I said to my dad, "Can I cut your hair?" And he said no. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" But my little brother let me cut his hair, and so I cut his hair. It wasn't too bad. The photo's actually still on Instagram now.
Oh, is it?
It's really not that bad. When I look at it, and I'm like, but from that moment, because even at the time, everyone was kind of like, it's not really bad, and everyone thought it was going to be awful. But because it wasn't, I knew somehow. I was like, I just felt like this was meant to be. I was like, this was what I was meant to do. And I was like, if I'm not doing it that bad now, if I pursue this and if I actually try and make something of this, what could happen? And then because my dad saw the haircut, so it wasn't too bad, he actually let me cut his hair.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, from there, then I just started. I remember my fiance Jess, I cut her brother's hair a couple of weeks after that, and they had some crazy mops, sort of really long hair. And I remember doing a skin fade, and when I look at it now, it's awful. But but at the time, it was good enough, and everyone was happy with it. And it was just that I was just cutting as many heads of hair as I could, and I literally dropped out of university straight away.
Oh wow.
I kept my part-time job so that I had some money coming in, because obviously I was just cutting hair on the evenings and whenever I could. But yeah, from literally from that moment of deciding or hearing that sound of the clippers and going, I want to cut hair now, from then, that was it.
That's awesome. Now, when did you also transition to a barbershop pretty quickly?
No,
Or
so I cut hair. My mom and dad's. I cut hair in their kitchen, in their dining room, in their hallway, in their bathroom.
yeah.
Literally anywhere they would let me. I cut hair there for about, I think it was about 6 months.
Okay.
Um, so I was doing a lot of haircuts, and so
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I said I feel like I progressed quite quickly was because I think that a lot of people talk about time in terms of how many years they've been barbering.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's more important about the amount of physical time you've spent cutting hair.
Mm.
Most barbers, when they first, like when they go to barber school or when they first start learning, they're probably doing one haircut a week,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Very slow.
maybe. Whereas I was doing like 4 or 5 a day
Mm.
from like the second or third week in.
Yeah.
Not literally every day. Some days might be 2, 3, but like largely an average probably be 4 or 5 a day, sometimes more. And so by the time we got to like 3 months, I'd done quite a lot of haircuts.
Yeah.
So then what I was doing at the time was I was getting my hair cut at barbershops that I knew I could potentially want to work
Mm.
in. Like, not necessarily the best shops in the world that I wanted to be in forever, but shops that I knew if I got like an in, they might help me get into that shop. And I
Yeah, yeah.
remember one of the shop owners started following me on Instagram. So 6 months in, he messaged me saying, "Do you want to come down for an interview?" Because he knew I was trying to find somewhere to work, and he made me cut his hair in the shop for the interview, and then I got the job, and it was only like a cheap in and out chop shop kind of vibe, but like at the end of the day, for me, that was experience that I was never going to get just in my mum and dad's living room because it was like barbershop life, like keeping all your tools sanitary, like working with other people, having a variation of haircuts, having a diverse clientele now.
Yeah.
So like when I first got in that shop, I couldn't even do a 3 back and sides. I could
Oh,
skin
gotcha.
fade.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd been skin fading for 6 months. But when like I was blending, I was used to blending from like skin. So like I could put my comb on the head and just scissor over comb up to
Yeah.
blend it in. Whereas when I got to that shop, like I couldn't do that with like a number 3 or a 4 or a scissor
Yeah.
cut or something. So it was really valuable time for me that time.
Yeah. Now, I know overseas and all that stuff, it's different because here we go to barber school and stuff
hmm
like that. So you guys don't necessarily go to barber school and stuff like that.
No, you like it. You don't legally have to go to barber school. You don't have to have a license. Which I semi agree on, semi don't.
Mm.
Um, like at the point now, like I mean, I couldn't sit here and say it's so wrong to not have a license
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't get one.
Mm-hmm.
Like now we have our education is an accredited education company, so like everything is all like completely legit.
Yeah.
But and it would be legit even from like an American's point of view
Yeah.
in terms of what you would think is legit. Whereas in the UK, like you don't need a license to cut hair, and I semi agree with it because I wouldn't have had my break without it. I think there's a lot of barbershops and they base their hiring on talent rather than if you got your
Mm-hmm.
license or not. So like
Yeah.
I do like that aspect,
For
but then
sure.
at the same point, I don't like the whole thing about anyone could just go and open a shop. Like you could literally decide tomorrow, I'm going to go and open a shop, even if you've never cut hair before, and no one's really going to stop you.
Yeah.
I do think there needs to be more protocol and more regulations on physically working as a barber in a barber shop or owning a shop, and definitely needs to be some more sanitation regulations. It's not to say that barbershops aren't clean, but it's just it's not regulated the same way it is over here.
Got you. Yeah, because I guess you guys get the same popularity as barbering as florists here in the States is probably flourished over there as
hmm
well. And there's guys that are coming from outside the industry that just
hmm
have money and
Yeah.
like it's kind of their toy of
Yeah,
opening up a shop.
100%, 100%. Especially like in the cities, people always ask me, "Why don't you go?" Because like our shop at home, our shop and the academy, but the shop specifically, it's like 30 minutes from downtown,
Okay.
in Birmingham, and so what we find is that people always ask me, "Why don't you open in the city?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Well, in the city, it's full of, as you said, people who aren't in the industry, just
Mm-hmm.
have some money, front up a shop,
Yeah.
pay people to go and work there."
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like from a customer's point of view, when they're looking at this big grand shop, it's been paid for by this millionaire.
Yeah.
They're going to look at it and go, "That looks really nice," and they might open up next to a shop that looks nice but not as grand as
Nice. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know where they're going to go first. And
Mm.
so, like, if you open in the city too with the rents and stuff, you've got to get the footfall straight away. You've got to be able to guarantee you can make that rent straight away, and the rent's going
Yeah.
to be like £10,000 or whatever it's going to
Yeah.
be. So,
That's crazy. Yeah, it's interesting to see where the dynamics of where it's going and all that stuff.
hmm
Um, so I wanted to talk to you about talking about like the education, because you're a major educator
hmm
now. You have your online academy. Where did it go from just being a barber, just cutting in the shop, to getting into the area of education? Was it just people seeing you cut hair in the shop and saying, "Hey, could you teach me that," or something else?
It's a bit of both. So what happened was, so when I worked in that first shop,
Mm-hmm.
at that time, then what I started to do is I essentially leveled up where I was getting my own haircut to where I wanted to work next. That makes sense. So I started to network myself again into the next sort of level of barbershops in terms of where I saw myself potentially going to work. And I got a job in now an appointment-based shop, and I was working in the appointment-based shop, and that's where I really started to hone in on becoming sort of the barber and the artist that I was. I had more time. I started to get a bit more expressive. I then started to delve into the idea of the barber industry in terms of the shows to do. There's things you could do, because people started asking me on Instagram, could you come and show me how you do what you do? And like at this point, I'd only been cutting hair a year, and I was getting asked.
Oh wow.
And so like looking back now, I definitely shouldn't have done it. Like
Yeah.
I definitely should have said no, but I remember I just said yes, and I've always stood by do things before you're ready, because if you wait till you're ready for it, there'll already be someone else doing it.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I just took the opportunity to go and teach, and I remember I went to Rotterdam in the Netherlands to do a class, my first ever class. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing there. I remember looking back now, it's embarrassing really looking back now to the lack of structure I had.
Yeah,
but at
yeah.
the same point, I'd been cutting hair a year. I was just a young kid trying to just take opportunities. And I remember I went, and they all loved it. Like they all loved the class. And I remember I loved doing it. I loved seeing that I could make an impact in someone else's journey, and that I could actually give value to someone else that was other than just a physical haircut itself. And so what I found that I did after that was when I decided that's what I want to do. I was like, I love cutting hair, and cutting hair has given me an opportunity to be able to grasp this as my career.
Yeah.
So what I did was then is I spent a lot of time studying myself, studying my own work, so I could devise a curriculum and why I do what I do, and to be able to put it into an actual education program. But I also started to then, instead of just networking myself to barbers to help barbers get to know me, it was more a case of I started going to shows, and well, I remember I went to one show. Basically, there was a show in the UK, and I wasn't meant to be at the show. I literally just grabbed the model and went to the show, bought a ticket for the show. And I remember I got there, brought my tools, and I just said, "Hey, what's up? Can I cut some hair?" And then the organizer of the show went, "Who are you?" And I went, and I remember I went, "It doesn't matter. Just can I just cut hair? Like I've got a model, I've got my tools. Like it'll just let me cut some hair." And he sent me over to this corner, and there was literally it was under a staircase. There was no lights. There was just a stool.
Yeah.
But I remember when I finished cutting hair, by the time I'd finished, there was more people watching me than was watching on the main stage.
Yeah.
And the next time he had that show, I was on the stage of that show.
Wow.
So it's like there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, I think I hit things at the right time in terms of I was doing creative stuff before creative stuff was seen as being cool to do. So that was making me stand out. But at the same point then, I was putting in the work to network myself into these opportunities to get them, because it was like education was like my drug. Like I just wanted to do more of it. I loved seeing people. I loved seeing the fire light inside of them when I was either speaking or with what I was doing. And so it really just grasped. I don't know. I just felt in every part of me that was what I was meant to do. So I was going to do everything I could to do more of it.
Yeah.
And I always talk about, to do more of something, you need to create the perception that you already do it. So what I was doing with this networking was creating a perception that it was a real perception, because I was at the event, I was cutting, but the amount of people taking videos of me cutting at the event and posting it meant then that I got traction then from other event organizers who was from different countries saying, "I've seen you at this event, would you like to come and do this, come and this?" Because I was still putting out the consistent work too in the shop, and I was putting out the consistent work on my content online. So it was like people were seeing me on my stories go here and there, but we're also seeing my work online leveling up every time. So it was like, by the time, what people were asking me all the time, "Can you come and do this and this and this and this?" And I just took every opportunity.
Gotcha. You just give it to me.
Anything I could do. I used to, at that time, I remember I was working full-time in a shop. I used to, every weekend, I would drive up and down the country or take planes everywhere to go to different locations to do shows. And it was always on my own too. So it was always, they would just ask me, I would just say, "Here's my day rate, there you go." And obviously at the time, my day rate was
Yeah.
nothing basically. It was
enough
like
to eat Taco Bell or whatever.
Yeah. But like that was how it began. It began by me just absolutely falling in love with being able to help people, basically.
Yeah. Now, did you ever think that it would come to this level that you're at right now with the education? Obviously we're not in the UK, we're in
Mm-hmm.
America and all that stuff, and you've traveled internationally. Did you ever think that it would get to this level, or did you have a goal in mind that you're like, I want to be able to teach around the world or anything like that?
To be honest, because at the time when I was getting into it, it wasn't really as known that you could do it as it is now.
Yeah.
So I feel like when new barbers come in now, they're coming in with like, I get to I can maybe travel the world, I could do this and that. Whereas I had no clue. I had absolutely no idea what I could do, what I could be. All I knew from the very first day of cutting hair was that I just wanted to enjoy every moment, and I wanted to do it so that I was enjoying it. Because my whole life I felt like I tried to live to make other people happy. So I felt as soon as I found this, I wanted to just live to make myself happy. So from the first moment, I remember I said to my parents when I started cutting hair, I said to them, I have no idea what I can do. I have no idea what I could make it as, but I will make it as something. And so in answer to your question is no, I would never have in a million years have dreamt what I could be doing. And I would never have been able to picture me being here and being in the States. Like, this is my 5th tour of the States, so I could never have imagined anything like that. But at the same point, I imagined every bit of it, if that makes sense. It's like, I knew something was going to come. I just didn't know what it could be or how it would be. I just knew that I would do everything. I just had this feeling inside of me that I was going to just work harder than anyone that could ever dream. Because I just knew at the end of it, or the journey of it, would at least bring some form of reward as we went along.
Now, did having that moment of, I'm not living for others, but I'm living for myself, was that a singular moment? Was it a culmination of like, wow, this is feeling better and better the more I do it?
To be honest, it's a really strange one, because it's kind of something that I never really addressed myself until I was probably, say, 3 years. So I've been cutting hair for, I think it's 6.5, 7 years now. I've been teaching for, say, 5.5, 6 years. It wasn't until about 3 years ago, I would say, that I really started to appreciate exactly what I'd been doing and how far I'd come. And so, like, I was talking to some guys on this tour the other day, and I was talking to them about like some of the trips I did at the very beginning. So not long after that Rotterdam trip and that show in England, I actually did a big show in Russia. I did a huge show in Russia, and it was phenomenal. But I just wish I could go and do it now with the sort of understanding of what I'm actually doing.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Like, at the time, I called myself a naive artist. Like, I was naive to everything. I was just living every day to enjoy every day.
Yeah.
But at the same point, I think that when it comes to now, like my mindset coaching, and like my like a personal development coaching that I do, that is where a lot of it stems from. It stems from the fact that I didn't care about what anyone thought. I didn't care about anything else other than just enjoying that day.
Yeah.
I didn't care about what I was going to do in the future. Now I do, like, obviously we do goal setting, and I can see it from a mature point of view, and I do goal setting myself, but I also help others to do it and to set out a path to lead them to success. But at the same point, I feel like I wouldn't have had my success, or what is my perceived success at least, if I had have done that. I didn't ever have goals other than being happy.
Yeah.
I never had anything I needed to achieve. But I feel like that came from being at the very, very bottom. Like, psychologically, mentally, I was at the very, very bottom. And so it was like I had nothing else to live for other than to try and make every day good.
Yeah.
And to try and make every day as good as it could be. So, and it did take a couple of years to really get through that into actually going, right, now we're maturing, we're becoming more of a business head. We're putting a business head on this, and we're going to sit down and plan how we want everything to be. Like, with the academies now, with our education, we have people on our education team, like obviously staff in the shop, like admin. We got so much going on now. It has to be completely organized.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't think half of that would be even possible without me having that freedom to be the sort of madman, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like, now that I have a team to do the organizing for me, like, in the middle part was the most serious I had to be, in a way, because it was like, now we're delegating jobs so that people can support the madness, and I can carry on just going on mad ideas, and that whole entrepreneurial sort of like mindset of you need to just be able to do what you got to do and do it, and do that kind of stuff, and kind of delegate to other people to help you on your way.
Yeah.
But in the middle, that was the period where I was doing absolutely everything. But I think the middle part was the trickiest because that was the part where I loved it, but I almost lost that I need to love every day thing. Because I started having to do jobs that I don't like to do.
Got you.
I started having to do jobs that I'm not particularly, I'm not good at, but like it's not me.
Yeah, it's a grind.
Yeah, it felt like a job, like some of the stuff in the middle. So in the middle part that's why I had to then sort of, remember me and Jess had a conversation about delegating jobs because I'd started to not enjoy stuff. Like at the one point, I remember I was in the shop every single day that I wasn't away teaching, which was most days.
Yeah.
So it's like I never got a rest because I'd be in the shop literally just every day, and I ended up feeling like I had to be in the shop, and I felt like I didn't love being in the shop anymore. So taking that step back and taking that more business head on things and planning things more, having a goal, having set goals, having set micro goals and macro goals, and really planning things out properly has helped me now to develop things into what you see today.
Gotcha.
So it's like there's loads of different stages to it, and there's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of also like weird times where you've got to like have a conversation with yourself in the mirror and be like, right, you need to organize your life now before it gets
too crazy. Yeah. Well, and I think too, like now coming out of this crazy 2020 that we're in, or 2021, we're almost 2022, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely that self-reflection time. Speaking a little bit about that, how was it? Because I know it was different for us here in the U.S. versus the UK and all that stuff. What did you do during that time? Was it a reflective time
During COVID?
Yeah.
God, during COVID was a crazy time because like, so the back end of 2019 was my last tour here. So we finished the Perspective Tour 2.0, and whilst I was here, I'd already started planning my online academy.
Yeah.
So I remember in October 2019, I set the date of launch as April the 1st.
Oh, wow.
In 2020. So, I mean, it ended up being, for me personally, good timing in a way.
Yes.
Because I remember when we were supposed to launch the online academy, I was supposed to be here for EWP2 with Bossio. And the workload that online academy ended up developing would just have been way too much to have actually done whilst having all of the traveling to do and all of the normal life to do. So COVID was a kind of strange one because it kind of gave me the time to actually make sure everything was refined and done properly on the online academy. Like we had everything planned, but it made me be able to be like, right, we're going to get the website right, get this right, be able to do the customer service, reply to people, look after people's accounts, that kind of stuff. Then there was like a lull in the middle because obviously out of the 12 months from like April to April in like the first year of COVID, England was locked down for I think it was like 7 or 8 months. Yeah. Like solid. I think we had like, it was like 4 months solid, then a little break, and then
back
a few more months, and we had like 3 lockdowns. So there was like a lull in the middle where the online academy had started to just like, it wasn't as hard to, it was just managing it rather than developing it, filming, all this kind of stuff. It was more so we were just managing it on the emails, and there was not much else to do. Yeah. And I couldn't travel, I couldn't do anything like. And so that was a weird time, but that was when I started to really try and develop my business understanding and really try to learn more, because I always think with cutting hair, I've always stood by self-study. I've always stood by doing my best to study my own work, and I've tried to say to everyone, you can learn more off of yourself than you can off of anybody else, personally, because you're learning how, like, once you know how to cut hair, if that makes sense.
Yes. Because
you're learning how to make your haircuts better. And don't get me wrong, I soak up information from everywhere and as much as I can, and everybody should. But I use that to better myself and study my own self. But business and other elements of life that aren't my natural ability, those are the areas where I was like, right, I can use this time to actually get better at those kind of things and learn about those kind of things. So I actually started for the first time in my life to, read, but listen to audiobooks.
Okay.
So I started listening to some audiobooks. I also decided to get back, like, just before COVID, I was really doing really well with the gym and like fitness and stuff. So then we got to COVID, obviously everything just kind of stopped and you couldn't do that. So then like to get out of the lull, I got back into exercising and got back into just sort of like getting out and about. I mean, me and Jess went on a lot of walks. Yeah. We used to live in an apartment. That was a tough one as well, actually. But at that time, we lived in an apartment, so we had no garden. and it was summertime in the UK, and it was actually one of the hottest summers we've ever had.
Oh no!
Typically, well, we're inside.
Yeah.
So it was a strange one because obviously with an apartment we're just locked in, can't go out anywhere, and because in the UK at that time you were only allowed to go outside once a day for a walk.
Oh shit!
So it was crazy. So it was a weird time where you had to almost check yourself, like, because there was times where I'll be like, oh my God, I can't cut hair anymore. Like, do I even know what I'm doing? Is everything going to be okay? What's going to happen? So I think for me, I've always understood that I'm an overthinker. And it's what I say to everybody, like, you can't help or really change who you are, but you can enhance it. And so for me, or you can sort of channel it at least. So for me, I'm an overthinker. Naturally, like, mentally, I'm an overthinker. And I always suffered when I was younger from not mental health issues as such. I was never diagnosed, but like, I always suffered mentally a lot just from overthinking and worrying about things and thinking things weren't going to be okay and putting my happiness in other people and stuff. So I remember during that COVID time, what happened was I would never have gone back to that, but like, I had nothing to channel my thinking into. So when I found barbering, when I started barbering, like I've said many times, when I started to cut hair, I felt like I'd gone home. Like, you know, that relaxation feeling of walking through your front door, lying down on the couch and just the TV's on, like you just become your truest self because you're at home.
Yeah.
That's the exact feeling I had when I started to cut hair. I felt like I'd gone home. And it gave me something to channel, gave me something to overthink. So instead of now overthinking situations that were negative, I turned my negative into a positive by giving myself hair to overthink. So this is like when I self-study, I sit at home and overthink everything about my haircuts. But I see that as good because I can progress from that, I can learn from that.
Gotcha.
But during that COVID time, I had nothing to overthink.
Yeah, no outlets.
So that's when I started to go with business. That's when I started to go with getting into real estate, getting into investing. I mean, I think everybody got into investing during COVID.
But like get some dough.
But the real estate was the biggest one because then I could start like overthinking about looking at properties, looking at deals, looking at all these kind of stuff, like what's going to be good to rent out, what's going to be good to flip, like all that kind of stuff. Then I started to then overthink going into exercise regimes, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And then by the time that happened, it started to get back to more of a normal life. As I knew I was approaching normal life again, I started to overthink my curriculums. Like I redone the curriculums. I went back over, added some bits in, took bits out, made them better. And again, like just used it for pure self-development. And I think a lot of people did do that, but I think that I felt like I didn't really realize how much I got out of lockdown until I was out of it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when I look now, it's like 2 years ago, I didn't know. This class was meant to happen 2 years ago.
Yes.
The class would have been nowhere near as good as it is if it happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because of the development in the last 2 years. So it was a tough time. It was a horrible time for everyone in the whole world. But at the same point, if used correctly, it was the biggest gift we've ever got. It was free time.
Yeah.
Like time is the most valuable investment we could ever make in ourselves. And it was almost like we were paid time. Like we were just given time. And instead of us having to find time, as we would say, to do things, we actually were just forced to have time to do things.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like there was obviously periods where there was not that much to do. So I remember we actually bought an Xbox, and I haven't played a video game for like probably about 6 years before that, for the whole time of cutting hair.
Yeah.
So there was times where I got to be a bit of a novelty as well and enjoy it. So
now
it was crazy.
Getting out of that, obviously now you have your tour planned out and all that stuff. And it was great. You know, I purchased the barbering course myself, and I have to give it off to you, just the amount of detail that you had in there. Especially the first video. I think I talked to you before off camera and all that stuff about understanding. You have a whole big section of that. Where did that come from? Is it the overthinking thing that you speak about?
So like one of the things that I've always stressed to people, or at least tried to show people, is that I feel like I'll do the overthinking for you.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. Like that's for me, that's what the course is. Like a lot of people have given me feedback on the course and said, I just wish I knew this at the start of my career. I wish I'd been told to think this way at the start of my career, because nobody really goes into the level of detail. I always it's that overthinking, overanalyzing thing. Like I'll take take the thing that we're supposed to be looking at, and I'll think, why has that happened? How did we get there? How can we get into that? How can we look into that? How can I get a microscope and find out more about it? So in terms of understanding hair in terms of for hair cutting itself, it's like I'm not happy enough to just know it works.
Yes.
I needed to know why it works. So like when I was studying what I was doing, every single night, we talked about it today in the class, every single night what I would do is I would allocate at least 1 or 2 hours every night after work, or when I was in my mum and dad's house as well. Every night after I finished cutting hair, I would analyze every single haircut. So I would always take a picture of every haircut. It doesn't have to be a haircut doesn't have to be a photo, like a posed photo.
Yeah.
Just literally just a quick snap of every haircut. And I would go home and I would spend 2 hours analyzing every haircut. What I would do is I'd get the haircut and I would write down 5 things I liked, 5 things I didn't like. Then what I would do is I would pan off of them and say, okay, these 5 things I like, write each one down and go, why didn't I like it? Okay, now write those down. Why do I think that happened?
Yeah.
Next bit. And I would just go as deep as I possibly could. And obviously, the more experience I've got and the longer that I've done that, the deeper my mind can go into it.
Got you. More self-awareness as you develop.
And so it's like, the more I understand about hair, or at least the more I understand about hair, the more I can help everyone else understand hair, which for me is going to put the industry give it best foot forward to move towards where we want to go, which is elevating the whole industry.
Yeah. Well, and I see you now with, with you owning your shops and the academy. So I guess to rewind a bit, when did it get to that point where you wanted to launch your physical academy and your own shop and all that stuff? Where was the turning point? Were you just feeling that you're ready to go after doing the education yourself out and about?
So it's a really strange one for me with the shop. So like when we first had the shop, we had it as a shop and an academy.
Okay.
So for like anyone who ever teaches, who teaches at all, and has an education in terms of what they do, I would always, especially in the UK, I'm not sure with the States it's a bit different, because I think you have to have a different license to teach. But in the UK, what I did was I opened it as a shop and an academy at the same time.
Okay.
Because when I opened it, it was essentially like the shop isn't really much bigger than this space. Which is like in the States is more of a studio.
Yes.
But shops in England are about that size. So what I did was when I opened, I knew it was only going to be me working in there. So I opened as a shop and an academy. So financially, I could essentially not have to worry about either. Because it's like if I just did 1 class a month, that was like profit on the shop.
Yes.
From like the bills and whatnot.
Yes.
But then obviously, so I didn't have to worry if every day wasn't booked out. But then at the same point, I didn't have to worry that I didn't have to worry about only having 1 course a month, because if I only had 1 course a month, then at least I still had the rest of every day as a shop to keep it going. I mean, and over time, obviously, I did a beginner's course. I trained some staff. They work in the shop, and I can when I first opened the shop, if I was teaching away, I would just close the shop. But at least it was only me reliant on it, so it was okay. But then obviously I was getting more and more in demand, and I would have some staff in the shop, and I would be away all the time.
Yeah.
So we had to really think about, and then I would be doing classes in the shop as well. But because the shop was so busy, and I couldn't force them to have a day off for no reason, I'd be teaching at the back of the shop, and that's when I was like, I want this to be seen as a professional educational organization.
Yeah.
I want to be getting accredited. This was a stage when we weren't, and I was like, I want to be getting accredited. I want to be doing this and that. So that was when that pretty much forced me into going, right, we've got to get an academy. We've got to get a separate space where I can run the classes. The online academy helped in that. Again, it gives me a buffer. Because what can happen is I know for a fact with the online academy, if we're selling this many a month, and we've got this many subscriptions a month, and we're making this much money a month from the online academy, even if we only have 1 class a month at the academy. Now we don't. If I'm at home, we tend to have 1-to-1s every week, 1 or 2 every week. We have a class. There's something going on every single day almost in the academy now. But when we first opened it, we first launched it, it was like, well, even if there's not, at least it's covered by the online academy making the money. So I was almost giving myself that safety blanket financially to take the plunge on getting these spaces without having to actually risk too much into it. But the shop was a funny one, because when we first got the shop, I didn't actually want the shop.
No, you wanted to be the
I didn't want a shop, but it was more a case of I was touring full time. I was having the time of my life, and this was at the time where now my tours are completely professional. Not that they weren't professional, but it's run professionally in terms of we're doing longer classes, 5-day courses,
less DIY. More course
Whereas at that point it was just one-day events. You just turn up with, as long as you got a model there, you turn up, it's all good.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's a lot more organisation that goes behind it. We sell the tickets now. We didn't used to. We used to just sort of do day rates. So there's a lot more behind it. But at the time, I was just literally essentially getting paid to travel the world, with being a naive kid at the time as well, not really caring about anything, just having a good time. So then the commitment of having the seriousness of owning a shop wasn't really appealing to me. But what really forced my hand was I was traveling to all these places. I went to South Africa, the States, went to all these different places, Brazil, and everywhere I went, people would say, "Oh, so where's your shop?"
Oh, gotcha.
And the thing is, at that time as well, like I'm 27 now, which I know is still young, but I feel like it's getting towards at least a more stable, mature age. That when I do what I do, people not accept it. Like I don't care about them accepting it or not, but like they know it's legit. Whereas when I first started teaching and stuff, I was like 22.
Yeah.
And like a 22-year-old kid, especially before I got, maybe 23 before I got the shop. So when I was 23 years old, I was traveling the world doing what I was doing. And I feel like in terms of legitimacy of my business, people just expected me to have a shop.
Gotcha.
And I didn't.
Yeah.
And I was always felt like I haven't got one. You know what I mean? I was always like, man, I haven't got one. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. And
I wanted to be able to say I have a shop. I wanted to have the pride of saying my business has a HQ, my business has this place. And that was what forced my hand in the end.
Now, getting into that, that's funny. Well, I didn't know either that you only were cutting for a year or so, and then started educating, which that literally blows my mind right now. I'm still trying to recover from that statement. But so going into that and having a shop, now you're obviously doing more delegation, as we spoke about earlier. What did you try to find out for that situation? So now I'm subscribed to the Academy, so I see that you have other educators coming on and you're building a team. What are you looking for as far as building a team? Is it the same mindset, the same cutting style? What is it that you're looking for?
So for me, being part of the team is just all about your energy and all about your mission and what you want to, the value you want to bring. Like I always talk about value and the value I can bring, but it's all about the value they can bring too. So with our education team, what we're trying to do is really encapture the whole industry. And because one of my mission statements has always been that I don't care how you cut hair, I just want to help you find out the best way for you to cut hair.
Yes.
And I want you to become the best version of yourself. And so what I want to do is I want to stress to people that no matter whether you're a classic barber, a modern barber, or like a precision cutter, or you just use clip over comb, or whatever, however you do what you do, as long as you're happy doing it, as long as your clients are happy doing it, then you have a value and a place in our industry. And whether you're an educator, whether you don't want to be an educator, whether you want to work in the shop all the time, whatever it is you want to do, you are valued and you should be celebrated, because like our differences are what make us great. Our differences are the most beautiful thing we have in common. We are supposed to be different. We're supposed to see hair differently. So our educators, if you looked at us on stage together, you'd think, why on earth are they all together at the same time? Like we've got Paul, who used to work at Scorum in the Netherlands, like completely classic trained, completely classic barber. Like, don't get me wrong, we all use the DFS formula in some form of way. So the DFS formula is my cutting formula. We use line theory as our understanding. And we all use DFS formula and line theorem. We all teach it, but we all teach it in our own way. Like, we have some people who will, like, Paul does it all clip over comb. So he'll, like, do the section, the horseshoe section, and then he'll clip it over comb his foundation. Then he'll do his center section, then elevate and clip over comb that in. So, like, he does it differently. Then we've got some who will use a profile guide in with what they're doing, if you know what I mean. So like it's about adapting it to suit yourself. And I want anybody who watches, I want to have a room for, like, I'd love to have an expo or a barber in an educational show where we're all teaching on stage, which means we're all pulling in people from all different realms of the industry. So the crowd just looks completely random. But every single person is going to take some value from there. And because what I tend to find is that barbers like to separate themselves into like cliques. They like to say, I'm a classic barber, I'm this, I'm that. Reality, all barbers are the same. We just like to cut hair. And the beauty in what we do is when we're on stage, me and Paul, we actually was the very classic barber. We went to Poland and did a class in Poland together. And I loved it because that weekend he was more well known in Poland than I was. Because he's just completely classic. And so I turned up to a crowd who barely any of them knew who I was, which I loved because that's like one of my favorite things to do. You know, I love going to crowds where people are there on purpose to see me because obviously it's completely humbling, and I'm super stoked to be able to share experience with people who appreciate what I do and who share the same values of what I bring. But also, it's an amazing challenge for me to go, right, okay, these people probably don't like modern cutting. Their perception of me is that I'm a modern barber. So they're going to expect me and Paul to be completely differently. When we start cutting the hair, because there's only one person in the entire of our thing, in our kind of, it's not even on our team properly, but in what we do that uses a profile guide. No one else uses a profile guide. And no one on the actual team uses a profile guide. So they're expecting me to use a profile guide on this class because that's what they just perceive everyone to do who does precision cutting. But when me and Paul cut hair the exact same way, and we did two completely different haircuts. Mine was like a really precise, like creative style. His was like a classic pompadour, but we did the exact same technique, exact same process, exact same everything. They all stood back and were like, wow, okay. And that for me was a huge moment to see the industry really coming together to say, well, we really aren't different. It doesn't matter what you do. It's just about your taste is what brings like your final piece to the table, if that makes sense. So what we're really trying to do is help everyone celebrate everybody and also help provide education for everybody. So like we have an Afro educator who is insane with Afro hair. We've got a beginners educator who used to work at like a college, like a barber school. We've just took on board a new member who she's essentially an expert in long hair with the formula that we use. And I'm talking like long hair, like women's long hair too, like bobs, these kind of stuff, but using the same formula. And so like I just want to see a stage with us all there doing the same process but completely different haircuts. And I feel like that's something that really can reach out to everybody and make an impact in everyone's lives because it's practical. It's usable. And in your day-to-day, and this is what we were talking about earlier, in your day-to-day barbering careers, that's what people want to see value being brought to. Like, because there's all well and good taking a class that you can learn how to do a showpiece for, which is cool if you want to go and win an award, and it'll be worth it if you win the award. But what better reward is there than building a successful career? And building a full book of clientele or a successful shop. You don't have to be in the shop all day, every day, but if you built a successful shop yourself, like I used to be in the shop every day, all day, every day. Now I'm not. It doesn't mean that I don't deserve that fully booked shop. Like the whole thing came from me working in the shop. Same as like your shop or someone else's shop would come from you starting out in that shop yourself and working. The whole point is towards the end, you won't have to work in the shop the whole time.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think that just helping people to feel good, that's all we want to do.
That's amazing. So speaking a bit about the creative side, if whoever's listening and hasn't checked out Josh's work, you need to because it's amazing. But I guess I had that same notion of like, oh, he just does really creative work, but it was refreshing to see the foundational stuff of just regular people haircuts, you know. But talking about that creative outlet, what is your process of getting to that state of creating a haircut? Is it something that you kind of jot down and think of, and then once you have the head, you could do it, or you do it right on the spot?
My creative stuff, to be honest, is 99.9% on the spot.
Okay.
The only things that aren't necessarily literally on the spot will be like creative shape with scissor work. But at the same point, how it exactly looks in the end will be still on the spot because I'll have refined it to suit the exact head of hair that's there. So it's like I'll plan out my basic structure and shape of how I want my scissor work to be, or at least the lines that I want to create. And then I can refine the lines, refine exactly how it looks as we go through. But like the real creative images, like I remember one of the most creative images I did, which gave birth to, I don't know whether you've seen, like there's a lot of like the Iranian barbers doing like a lot of like reverse fading and stuff like that. I remember I did a haircut it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a guy with blue hair, and he had a line through there. It was reverse faded, all this kind of stuff. And that's before, like, I used to get laughed at for doing them. But I remember doing that, and all I remember is he'd bleached his hair, but he'd only bleached like the top part, and so through here was like a bleach line.
Oh, okay.
And so I was cutting it and I was fading it, and I was like, man, it looks good and I loved it, but I was like, well, that bleach line is killing me. So I put a line straight through the bleach line and it topped off the whole haircut, made it stand out, made it look like the creative piece. And so the most creative things I've ever done has probably been in the last 5 minutes of the haircut.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, it's like, I always let the creativity unfold. I don't like to, for me, I want to truly, truly create. And I always think that even if it's something that I've imagined in my head, it's still a recreation of something I've imagined. It's still recreating. Even though it's recreating something I came up with, it's still recreating. True creation for me is being able to get to the end of the haircut and go, wow, even I couldn't have imagined that, to be fair. Like, being able to go, like, take yourself by surprise and go, like, don't get me wrong, it might not be everyone's cup of tea, it might not be everyone's favorite haircut.
Yeah.
But if I can get to the end and go, that's actually good. I actually like that. And you couldn't have imagined it like that.
Yeah.
That for me is true creation. And so, like, all of the creative pieces you'll see on my Instagram, you can know now I did that at the end of that haircut.
Yeah.
I'll have gone back and gone, wow, that worked.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that looked good. And it will always have come from, like, at the last 5-10 minutes of going, shall I do this? Shall I do this? Shall I do this? Shall I do this? I always had to give myself a foundation of the good haircut to start with. So I'll do the outline of the haircut, I'll do the silhouettes of the haircut, I'll do the scissor cut, whatever it may be. But the refining, when I make it a really creative haircut, that's the stuff that's just purely by sight.
Yeah. Even, if anybody's watching the video version of this, I usually never have a haircut during these videos, and I got blessed by Josh to get a haircut by him. But even I was, getting a haircut from another barber, you kind of pay attention.
Yeah.
Your barber brain turns on of what they're doing and all that stuff. But the amount of attention that you were giving even to my cut, like when we were texting back and forth, that I told him my hair is a pain in the butt and all this stuff. But do you practice? Have you always been that engaged with your cuts? Is that something that you just developed naturally, of just like being that razor sharp focus? Do you practice meditation or anything like that?
Cutting hair is my meditation.
Yeah.
I think for me, I've always been that intense with cutting hair. It's probably one of the reasons. It's probably one of the reasons my eye blew up. But I've always been that intense. But I think that comes from me not having anyone to tell me what to do or what not to do. When I first started cutting hair, I was just cutting. I just cut until it looked good. Like, I would rather. I honestly probably took like three hours on a haircut once, probably, when I first started.
Yeah.
But that was because I wasn't doing it in a shop as an apprentice. I wasn't doing it in a barber school or a college. So I didn't have anyone on my shoulders with time saying, come on, you need to hurry up, or you need to do this and this. I was just making sure that I didn't let a bad haircut go.
Yeah.
I was just going to wait and then do everything I could and focus until I knew that it was at least good enough, and I thought it was as good as I could get it at that time. And I think that a lot of that comes from, I always understood that it was my sight that was going to determine my ability. Like, if I could, it's not necessarily like, my hands don't necessarily improve over time. Like, my technique, yes, your technique needs refining when you start learning to cut hair. You need to get better at your technique and your technical ability with your scissors, with your clippers, whatever, to get the right motions and stuff like that and get used to it. But that's 20% of success when it comes to cutting hair. The rest of it is all in your head. It's all in, like, your level of sight into what you can see. Because, like, let's say you're fading. Your fades when you first start cutting hair are terrible. But at the time, you think they're good because they're good for what you can see in your experience level. And so what I've always strived to do is give myself as much time as possible to see more. And the more I can see, like in terms of my career, I'll be able to see more in 10 years than I can now. But in terms of my physical haircuts, I like to, like, the way that I cut hair, it's a process designed to buy myself more time to see things, to be able to see things clearer. And so that I always did that within the haircuts. From the very first day, I would try to do haircuts in a way that I can buy myself time throughout the haircut, like do a little bit and then go back to it as I'm coming through. So I'm like refining as I'm going, because it's giving me more chances to see it, more time to see, essentially.
Yeah.
So that intensity that I displayed on you, that's been the intensity the whole way through.
That's amazing. You kind of alluded to it a little bit. I didn't know if I wanted to bring it up because it was kind of a personal thing. If you'd like to talk about it, you can or you don't. But your eye blowing up. I remember, seeing that on your story, and I was even scared and all that stuff. So you had to go to a hospital because of your eye and all that stuff. And I always have a paranoia in the back of my mind of like my hands or, you know, an injury that will stop me from cutting hair and all that stuff. What was going through your mind when that happened to you?
To be honest, I was at the beginning, I was just being typical me and just dealing with things by plowing through them.
Yeah.
So I was just carrying on. And then it was when I was in Bulgaria, as I said, I looked, the whole class actually asked me if I wanted some eye drops or some painkillers or something. And I didn't even know why, because I just blocked it out of my mind. Because like the previous like week to that, like Jessica kept telling me your eyes red, your eyes bloodshot, you're going to get checked out. I was like, yeah, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like it's probably just, I actually remember saying it's probably hay fever.
Yeah.
I was like, it's probably hay fever, you'll be fine. Got to Bulgaria, did the class. They looked at me and they were like, you need to look. And I looked in the mirror, my right eye was just purple. And I mean, like, it was a deep purple. It wasn't even red, it was purple. And I was like, I remember going, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I probably need to get this checked out. So we flew home. I flew home, like, I finished the class. And I flew home. I remember I went to the hospital. I still, at this point, probably thought, it's probably just nothing. They'll probably just give me some tablets and I'll be on my way. And then about 3 hours later, I was having an injection in my eyeball, and I was like, "Yeah, this is serious."
Holy shit!
I was like, "Yeah."
I
was like, "This isn't fun." I had an eye patch on. Honestly, the whole one eye willy thing was going down. So I was like, "All right, okay, this isn't good." And that's when I started to really think. Like, it wasn't till after that, for some reason, that I really started to notice how blurry my eye had got. Like, I think it's just to realize it got to the point where I actually accepted that it was happening.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm accepting it's happening now. And then I started to notice, and honestly, to the point where I couldn't even post content on Instagram because I couldn't see my haircuts.
Oh, you didn't trust it? Yeah.
No, I couldn't see. Like, I actually couldn't see the detail in what my haircuts looked like on there. I saw, let alone cut hair. That's when I started to think, what's going to happen now? I hope this gets better, because like one of my most famous sayings I always say is your sight determines your ability. And I was laughing to myself thinking, it better not.
Better find a different sight or different way. Yeah. Get some AI clippers.
Well, literally, and I was thinking, how am I going to, and to the point where I was even contemplating who I would ask to do the cutting if my eye was going wrong, like seriously wrong, who I would ask to do the cutting on our education days, and I would do the talking. I was thinking, like, I'm going to have to get someone to do the cutting for me, and I can demonstrate the process. But like, luckily, we built it up to the point where the curriculum is really the main point of what people sign up for now. I think when I first started the academy, people signed up because they wanted to see me cut hair. Yeah. Whereas I really do think now that the curriculum's building up a reputation enough that people want to see the curriculum. So I wasn't going into complete panic mode, but I was a bit like, I was thinking of some just what protocol we'd have to take if it was going south. But then I got put on these drops, and to be honest, the drops were intense. So the drops were every hour, every day.
Oh, shit.
For like a week of that. Then it was like, I think it was like 8 times a day, then 6 times a day. And so like there was like, I think it was like 3 months worth of drops. As it got towards the end, I started to notice that I was getting headaches and my eye wasn't clearing up. So then I was like, I went to the hospital again. They checked me for all these headache stuff, gave me some tablets. That wasn't working. And then it was like getting to the time when it was really serious. Like I was like, well, we go to America in like next week. Oh, yeah. And I was like, I was in Spain, I think. I think it was Spain. And I flew back from Spain, and then that week we had our award ceremony for our online academy on the Sunday, and we flew to Mexico to quarantine for here on the Monday. And so we came to the agreement. We were like, I'm going to have to go to the hospital and just make sure I get checked out. So I got admitted to the hospital. I was in the hospital for I think 3 or 4 days, something like that. Had every test I could possibly have had, so that I could get the medical all clear. Yeah. Had the medical all clear. He said, you're fine. And then they told me they reckon it's a side effect of my vaccine. Yeah. But hey ho. Yeah. It's got to carry on.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And I know it takes a lot of mental toughness to be able to even go through that and just figure this stuff out. But I'm glad you're better
I appreciate that
and teaching and all that stuff. I know we're getting close to the time, and I appreciate you coming and doing this interview. With wrapping it up, is there anything that you would like to bestow upon like younger barbers or people that are thinking about getting into the industry? Because I feel like right now it's a different time, and it's definitely different from when I started about 9 years ago, and like it's always ever changing. But what would you advise somebody new trying to get into it?
To be honest, I think one of the best pieces of advice, well, there's a few pieces of advice I could give, but one that I definitely think is worth saying to people is that to remember that there is no wrong way to do something and only one right way. And the right way is your way.
Yeah.
So I'm not in that. I'm saying never disregard anything anyone teaches you. Never think, oh, I learned from one guy, so what you teach me isn't going to be worth it. Take information from every single source you possibly can. Like, I've always built myself on the mindset of that every single person that I meet is better than me at something and can teach me something of value. Like, we literally had a conversation today about these microphones.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. Every single person in the world can teach me something, but the same way, I'm better than them at something too. So what I'm trying to say to people is never look up on anyone, never look down on anyone, but never look up to anyone either, in a good way. In terms of, don't put yourself below somebody.
Yeah.
But don't put yourself above them either.
Yeah.
Keep thinking of yourself as a level playing field with everyone, in that you deserve to be respected, but at the same point, respect everyone who's trying to teach you something. And in doing that, and in having that self-respect and self-confidence too, you'll develop your own way to do things. You'll develop your own path to success, and you'll end up just becoming who you really are. And I also think it's important to take the time to really not think about whether you really want to do this, because it's like, for me, it's the best job you could ever, best industry you could ever get into in the whole world. But you can't get into it because you think it looks cool.
Yeah.
You can't get into it because you think it pays well. Because let me tell you, for the first 2 years, you're not getting paid well.
Yeah, you're eating shit, for sure.
For the first 2 years, you're not getting paid well, and for the first 2 years, you're not going to look cool because you're not getting paid well.
Yeah.
So, and what people think is the cool part about it is that, oh, you get to choose your own hours, you get to do this, you get to be your own boss. You be your own boss, you do your own hours from the word go, you having no money for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because you'll start associating pain with turning up to work. You'll start associating pleasure with getting off early. And so what I'm trying to say to you is, like, work hard, try to work harder than every single person in the room. Try to work harder. Not even try, do it. Like, and if you do it, then you're never ever going to go wrong. And try every day just to be a better version of yourself. Work every night so that next day you can be better. So that's why I'm saying that 2 hours every night I used to spend studying what I did during that day. And I still do it now. I don't obviously write everything down now, purely from literal time point of view, because sometimes I might not get back and, like, I've been flying and whatnot, but, like, I'll mentally, at least, or in my phone or something, make notes on the things that I know I did well or didn't do well and I want to learn from, whether it now be like business or cutting or teaching, whatever it may be. But at the start, when you're first starting out, literally every single haircut you do, take photos. Every single haircut you do, analyze it, figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like, what can you do better. Take classes, get as much experience as possible, surround yourself with the right people. But also, when I say the right people, I mean surround yourself with people who are dreaming on the level that you're dreaming on. And one thing that I think could be very valuable for people to take away is something that I do on my one-to-ones now. And it's write down on a piece of paper 5 of your wildest dreams. Like, literally the wildest dreams you could think of that you would love to do, whether that be what, like, car you want to own or vacation you want to take or where you want to live, whatever it may be. Write down 5 of these things, and for each 5, write down what is the halfway point to that. Then for those, write down what is the halfway point to that. Then write down what is the halfway point to that. And then when you get to that, you should get to a point where you could see a foreseeable path to get there.
Yeah.
Or you could at least plan yourself some goals to get there. And if you set yourself micro goals that will lead you to wherever you were at that point, the, like, I don't know, 16th version like of your main dreams, write yourself a set of goals to get you there, because that's what goals are for me. Goals and dreams are different things. Like, a lot of people think that dreams are what like we should be aiming for our dreams, but dreams are unobtainable as a sole individual goal. We will never get to our dreams. If you're focused on getting your dream, you'll never ever get there. But there's probably 100 or 200 or 1,000 micro goals that if you just take each one step by step, you will get to your dreams and beyond. So what I'm trying to say is, focus now on writing down whatever dreams you want to do, but analyze them, think deeper, overthink it if you want to, but overthink it, look deeper into them and plan how could you get there. Plan your micro goals out for the next year, for the next 2 years, for the next 3 years. Plan out micro goals so that you're not trying to reach unobtainable goals. So if you're starting out in the industry, your only goal should be to get good at cutting hair.
Mm-hmm.
Your only goal should be to get as good as you can at cutting hair. And to be honest, that's still my goal.
Oh, wow. That's crazy to hear.
So my goal is and will always be to get as good as I can at cutting hair. Like, if I look back at my work from a year ago and I look back now and I can see my progression, but I can also see where I need to progress still.
Mm.
And so I think no matter where you get to, and I think this is the mindset that most barbers drop out of. Like we discussed this earlier this morning. When barbers first start cutting hair, they have the most beautiful mindset in the world, because what they're doing is they're trying to create the perception to everybody else in the whole world that they can do it. They're telling everyone, oh, come on, let me cut your hair, I can do it. Let me cut your, I got you, bro, I can do this, I can do this. They're trying to make everyone believe that they can do it. They're also then working their ass off so they can do it.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters other than getting good at cutting hair. But these two mindsets, they drop as soon as they get good enough.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they get good enough to cut hair or they've got some clients, they stop focusing on getting better every day and they start focusing on how much money they put in the till.
Mm.
Whereas for me, building a reputation, a brand, a business, whatever it is far more important about the value you bring to the world rather than the amount you take through the till. And if you focus on the value you bring, the amount you take through the till is going to go up tenfold. So focus on purely enjoying what you're doing. Focus purely on maintaining those two goals of trying to get better every day and also creating the perception that you are better every day. Yeah. Because if you create the perception that you're better or create the perception that you do certain things, you're going to do more of them. You're going to get more opportunities. If you want to go and cut more, any haircuts that you don't feel like you're excelling at, practice them out of work. Take photos of them so you get more chance to practice them. Like post certain content. If you love certain haircuts, post more of them so you do more of them. Like essentially control your destiny.
Yeah.
But also to realize that you control completely your own levels of motivation. Most people think that they don't. Most people think that they need to seek motivation and inspiration from other people. But what they don't realize is that inspiration, again, think deep into it, inspiration is not a thing. It's not a physical thing. It's not the words that I'm saying. It's not the haircut you've seen. It's not anything other than literally a feeling. So if you're listening to this feeling inspired, it's the feeling inside of you that is inspiration, not the words that I'm saying right here. You can control that. Now, for me, doing a good haircut gives me a sense of inspiration. It makes me feel like I want to be better. Like makes me feel like I'm becoming something. I'm doing something successful. It makes me feel fulfilled. Now, that feeling of inspiration, that gives you motivation. So if you're ever lacking inspiration, just do something that gives you motivation. Sorry, if you're ever lacking motivation, do something that gives you inspiration. So like your favorite haircut in the world, when you do it and you do it well, you probably feel inspired. You're, I don't know, reading an audiobook or like doing, like on a walk or going for a like I love going for a coffee. It makes me feel like I want to work harder. I know that's really strange, but like I like getting my laptop out and doing some work there. It makes me feel like I work more there than I would at home. Yeah. So if I'm lacking motivation at home, go for a coffee, get your laptop out and work there. You're going to be more motivated to do the work you need to do. So it's about finding a way to associate pleasure to the things that you normally associate pain to if they're going to help you progress. And I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. It was incredible talking to you. Thank you for like just taking the time out and just influencing other barbers, you know. Yeah, it was incredible. That definitely gave me some motivation. So that was great. If people are trying to find you, as far as your Instagram and your academy and all that stuff, where can they go to see more content from you and all that stuff?
So if you're looking at Instagram, it's literally just Barber Josh O.P. There's a lot of periods in there, so you'll definitely find it. Yeah. So either that, or you can contact us at education@barberjoshop.com, or just hit our website, which is just www.barberjoshop.com. And yeah, just get in contact if anything you need to know, anything you want to know. I mean, the academy, especially now we updated the website, is pretty straightforward. The website's pretty straightforward, but again, we're always free. Just hit us up on the email, or hit me on the email. So if you DM me, I might not see it too long.
Yeah, no worries. And I guess I also shout out too, you're still on tour.
Yes.
You still have a couple dates available. So if you are in the States and all that stuff, this podcast will be out during that time. So make sure to see if Josh is by your city, because I definitely would check him out. But
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Till next time. Thank you guys for listening. It was a great episode to have Josh on, and there's so much that we discussed, but my favorite part was definitely about talking about understanding ourselves and really setting our goals up of what we want to do and what we achieve. Josh is definitely a model for what you could do in such a short amount of time when you keep crazy amount of focus. But let me know what your favorite part of the episode was in the comments. Like it if you dug this episode, and make sure to share with everybody that you know. Until next time, everybody, stay present.